The bridge was closed after one inspection. The inspector wrote, "Do not reopen." 6 weeks later, traffic was back on it. The bridge inspection was supposed to be routine, a short visit, a few photos, a standard safety form. But when inspectors opened the maintenance file years later, one note stood out: "Do not reopen until support damage is reviewed." The note was dated 6 weeks before the bridge was cleared for traffic. It had been signed, filed, and then removed from the public record. For years, thousands of cars crossed that bridge every day. Commuters, school buses, delivery trucks, families heading home. Nobody knew the structure above them had once been flagged for urgent review. And when investigators finally reopened the file, they realized the missing inspection was not the only problem. It was the first clue in a much larger failure. The bridge was old, but not forgotten. It crossed a wide river outside a growing industrial town. For decades, it carried heavy traffic between factories, neighborhoods, and the main highway. Officially, it was inspected every year. On paper, the structure remained safe, but inside the inspection records, investigators later found signs of concern. Cracks had been photographed. Rust had been documented. Support joints showed unusual wear. None of it was dramatic enough to close the bridge immediately, but together, the findings suggested something serious. The bridge needed deeper analysis, not cosmetic repairs, not another routine form, a real structural review. And one inspector understood that better than anyone. His name appeared on the inspection form that later disappeared. He was not new to the job. He had inspected bridges for more than 20 years. Colleagues described him as quiet, strict, and extremely careful. He rarely used urgent language. That is what made his final note so important. He did not write that repairs were recommended. He wrote that the bridge should not reopen until support damage was reviewed. That phrase changed everything, because it meant the problem was not just visible rust. It meant the inspector believed the structure itself might be compromised. But the bridge did reopen. The warning was buried, and the official file said something much softer. The public version of the inspection report looked ordinary. It mentioned surface corrosion, minor cracking, routine maintenance. Nothing that would alarm drivers. Nothing that would force an immediate closure. But investigators later compared it to the original field notes. The difference was impossible to ignore. The strongest warning had been removed. Photos were missing. Measurements were shortened. The phrase, "Do not reopen," appeared nowhere in the final file. Someone had turned a serious warning into a manageable issue. And once the language changed, the decision became easy. The bridge was cleared, traffic resumed, and the first warning disappeared into the archive. For a while, nothing happened. That was part of the problem. Every normal day made the decision look correct. Cars crossed, trucks crossed. No one complained. Local officials pointed to the bridge as proof that repairs had worked. But hidden inside maintenance logs, small problems continued appearing. A vibration report, a loose joint, a patch that failed sooner than expected. Each issue was treated separately. Each repair was described as routine. But years later, investigators would connect them into a pattern. The bridge was not suddenly becoming dangerous. It had been showing signs for a long time. The problem was that nobody wanted to read the signs together. The second warning came from a maintenance crew. They were not engineers. They were workers assigned to repair a section beneath the bridge deck. During the job, they found damage that did not match the official file. A support plate had shifted. Bolts showed unusual stress. Metal around one joint appeared distorted. The crew photographed everything. Then they filed a maintenance request asking for a structural engineer to review the area. The request was marked received, but investigators later found no evidence that the review ever happened. No engineer visit, no follow-up memo, no updated safety rating. The request simply stopped moving, and that was when the bridge entered its most dangerous phase. Traffic across the bridge kept increasing. The town had grown. Factories expanded. Heavy trucks used the bridge daily. The structure had been designed for one era, but was now carrying the weight of another. Records showed that officials discussed traffic pressure several times, but closing the bridge would have caused major problems. Detours were long. Businesses would complain. Repairs would be expensive, so the solution became temporary fixes. Patch the surface. Replace visible parts. Delay the larger review. Every decision seemed practical in the moment, but each delay pushed the real problem further into the future, and the future was getting closer. Then came the inspection that should have changed everything. A new engineering team reviewed old photos, maintenance logs, and stress reports. They noticed the same pattern the first inspector had warned about years earlier. The damage was not isolated. It was connected. Several support points were showing related signs of stress. The team recommended a full structural assessment before the bridge remained in heavy use. The report was sent to several departments. This time, The warning did not vanish immediately. It was discussed, reviewed, delayed, and slowly reduced into another maintenance recommendation. By the time it reached the final file, the urgency was gone. The day of the failure began like any other. Morning traffic moved across the bridge. A line of vehicles waited at the light on the far side. Below, the river moved slowly between the concrete supports. Witnesses later described hearing a sound before anything visible happened. Not an explosion, not a crash, a deep metallic groan. Some drivers felt the deck shift beneath them. Others saw dust fall from the joints. Within seconds, the bridge began to fail. Emergency calls started almost immediately. The official explanation at first was simple: a sudden structural failure. But investigators would soon discover there was nothing sudden about it. The investigation began within hours. Engineers photographed the damaged supports. Inspectors collected broken components. Officials secured maintenance records. At first, everyone focused on the physical failure. Which joint broke first? Which support gave way? Which section carried the most stress? But the more records investigators reviewed, the more the case changed. The bridge had not failed because one part broke. It failed because warnings had been handled as paperwork. Reports existed, photos existed, requests existed, and again, the most serious concerns had been reduced, delayed, or removed. The investigation was no longer just about steel and concrete. It was about decisions. Weeks later, investigators found the missing inspection note. It was not in the main bridge file. It was inside a storage box labeled for older maintenance photography. The note had been folded behind a set of printed images showing support damage. At the top was the inspector's original recommendation: do not reopen until support damage is reviewed. The words were clear. The date matched. The signature matched. This was the warning that should have stopped the bridge from reopening. Investigators compared it to the public version of the report. The final file had removed the warning completely. Not softened, not summarize, remove. That discovery changed the investigation. The missing photos were found next. They showed damage more serious than the official file suggested: rust around load-bearing joints, cracks near support plates, metal distortion beneath the deck. Some images had handwritten notes in the margins: monitor immediately, possible movement, review before reopening. None of those notes appeared in the final inspection file. Investigators now had a pattern. The original record showed concern. The final record showed control. The field evidence showed risk. The official summary showed routine maintenance. Someone had not just ignored the bridge inspection. Someone had changed what the inspection appeared to say. The investigation never proved that one person made every change. Instead, it found a chain. One department shortened the language. Another delayed the review. A manager approved temporary repairs. A final report described the bridge as serviceable. Each step looked small. Each decision could be explained: budget limits, traffic pressure, incomplete data, administrative delay. But together, those explanations created a dangerous picture. The bridge did not fail because nobody saw the warning. It failed because the warning passed through a system that made it easier to keep the bridge open than to ask the hardest question: was it actually safe? The final commission concluded that earlier action could have changed the outcome. The first inspection should have triggered a structural review. The maintenance crew's report should have been escalated. The second engineering warning should not have been reduced to routine repairs. The bridge had spoken many times before it failed: through cracks, through movement, through photos, through reports, through one sentence that had been removed from the file. The tragedy was not that no warning existed. The tragedy was that warnings existed in too many places to ignore. And still, the bridge stayed open. For investigators, that became the central lesson of the case. Today, the missing inspection remains the most important document in the case, not because it predicted every detail, not because it explained the entire failure, but because it proved that the danger had been recognized. The bridge was not silent. The records were not empty. The warning was not vague: do not reopen until support damage is reviewed. Those words existed before the failure. They were signed before the failure. They were filed before the failure. And then they were removed from the version the public never questioned. Most disasters do not begin with the moment something breaks. They begin when someone decides a warning can wait. Case file closed.